Hello and welcome to our next homework video. This is Mr. Sama again, and just bringing to you a video on the three different forms of linear equations that we're going to experience in Algebra 1 class. Unfortunately, I realized today that I forgot my tie, so you guys are going to have to put me up in a sweatshirt. That's okay though. Learning targets. There are two things you should be able to do at the end of this homework video. You should be able to recognize all three types of linear equations, which we'll do first. After you can recognize them, we'll go into the types of information you should be able to pull out of all three types, and we want you to be able to pull that information out of the equations. When you come into class, we'll be doing the opposite. So instead of giving you an equation and you pull the information out of the equation, we're going to give you the information and make you write the equations. Yes. So, here are the three different forms of linear equations. This is what they look like in general. These two I expect you've probably seen a decent bit of in class, just with numbers instead of constants like m and b and a, b, and c in them. This may or may not be completely new to you depending on your Algebra 1 teacher. So, over here, we all have encountered this before. We call this, slope, intercept, form. It looks like y equals mx plus b, and yeah, almost every equation we've given you in class, you've solved for y equals. This is the only one of the three forms that you can take directly to the calculator because the button on the calculator starts with y equals, and then we can enter this stuff in and go on. One other note about recognizing slope-intercept form is you've seen in class it can also look like y equals b plus mx. These are interchangeable. Technically, in order to be slope-intercept form, it has to be mx plus b. But usually when we see things like this, we don't write it that way. We just pull the information out and continue. Over here, this is what we call standard form. Standard form of equations we've seen with things like the price of adult tickets is $5, and the price of student tickets is $2, and we pulled in $300 in one night. In that case, if the price of adult tickets were $5, the price of student tickets were $2, and we pulled in $300 a night, our equation would look like this. And you should be used to seeing this. Usually when we've seen these things in class, we've solved it for y, so we've changed it from standard form to slope-intercept form, and then taken it to the calculator. This may be completely new to you. This form is called point slope form. And you're going to see it more and more in class for the rest of this unit. It will also be on our test. In many cases, this is the easiest form of a line to use. When you take your end of course exam, you will not be forced to use this type of equation, but it will be useful information to help you go faster. First, we're just going to recognize which equations look like which form. So, if you have these copied down, look at them on our next page. Which form is each of the following? So, looking here, I can recognize this looks like ax plus by equals c. Therefore, it is standard form. Moving on here, this looks like y equals mx plus b, which is slope-intercept form. Our next one here, this looks like that weird new form. Y minus y1 equals 1/2 would be our m times x minus x1, which is point slope form. This equation down here doesn't exactly look like any of our types, but if you realize it actually is y equals b plus mx going on here, don't get caught up on that this is minus. It's actually because it's plus, -3 is your slope. But realizing that it looks like this is the same thing as mx plus b. So this is slope-intercept form. And then lastly down here, I wanted to add this so you wouldn't get caught up in the fact that when you look at this, it looks a lot like our point slope form up here, except that this plus, or this minus, is now a plus, and this coefficient is just a negative. Well, that negative is a hidden -1, and this plus you could think of as a minus negative. It really is no different than that. So this is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, which is point slope form. So hopefully off of this you should be able to look at equations like these and label which type of form you're looking at. The important thing about that is we can pull out different types of information from each different form, so you have to know which form it is to know what information you can get. The information we can pull out from different forms. This one we're used to. You know, this is y equals mx plus b. So here, m is our slope, b is our y-intercept. So in this case, we know the slope, which we use m for, is -3, and the y-intercept, which we use b for, is 1. In general then, whatever this looks like with the numbers, you should just know this is your slope that you pull out, and this is your y-intercept. Next example. Here we're looking at point slope form. I'll go ahead and label it. This is point slope. So over here is also, this is point slope. So it should make sense, if you know the name of it, that we can pull a point.
Dave Bailey, please contact the main office. Dave Bailey, call 5400.
And the slope. So, point will look like this, and our slope is m. Coming over here, you can see where things come from. Point and slope. Slope, we all know, is m. So, and then the point we pull out, the key is just knowing x is with x1, which is the x value for our point, and y is with y1, so y1 is the y value for our point. Over here then, the slope we can pull out, our slope is m here, which is in the same place as 2 here, so slope is 2. The point, x was with x1, so this became our x value. Here, x is with 1, so 1 becomes our x value. And then y was with y1 here, which became our y value. The same thing here, it is 2. Before we go on, I'd like you to notice, when I pull the x and y coordinate out for this slope, both of these signs switch. -2 became +2, -1 became +1. That specifically is a relationship you will talk about much more either towards the end of the year this year or in Algebra 2. For now, I would recommend that you just memorize with point slope form the x and y coordinates, their signs switch when you make the point. Lastly, down here we're getting to standard form. So, standard form. And standard form over here. The information we can pull out from standard form, there's nothing directly like these other two. That's why this is named slope-intercept, because you can pull them directly out. This is named point-slope, because you can pull those straight out. This doesn't have a fancy name like that. Because it just is standard form, there's nothing we can do directly. You have two options with standard form. First, we could find intercepts by plug in 0 for x and find out what y is. Well, if 0 is in for x, then this thing disappears. And if you solve that equation, you can see it's just 20 divided by 5 makes 4. Then I can plug in 0 for y, And if you realize, if I plug in 0 for y, this disappears, and I get 2x equals 20. When I divide, I get x equals 10. So you can pull out your intercepts. In general over here, intercepts then get a little bit more complicated in general. But if I plug in 0 for x, this goes away, and I have to divide to solve for y, so I get c divided by b. C divided by b. Then plug in 0 for y, this disappears, and I get c divided by a, which is quite easy. The only other option you have with standard form, I'll say or, you can get y alone, and when you get y alone, you'll have y equals mx plus b, and then we can use what we know about slope-intercept form, because we'll be there. So this is the information you can pull out. Slope-intercept form, slope and y-intercept. Point-slope form, a point and the slope. And then standard form, we can either get our intercepts by dividing things, or we can get y alone and go to slope-intercept form. So, go through some examples. This is slope-intercept form. So I know I'm looking for slope is with x, in this case is 1. Y-intercept is all alone, in this case is -1. Down here, I can see that this is point slope. So I should be able to pull out a point and the slope. Slope in point slope form comes right here in front of the parentheses, out front of x. So our slope is 4, because that's where m goes in the general formula. Our point, I know the x value is with x back here, and it switches sign. So it's -3, +3. Y value is with y, switches sign, becomes +2. So point slope form, we pull out a point and a slope. Here I could solve for y and go to slope-intercept form. Instead, I'm just going to practice finding intercepts when x is 0, when y is 0. When x is 0, this goes away. 24 divided by -4 makes us -6. When y is 0, this goes away. And when I divide, 24 divided by 3 gives us 8. Those are our intercepts, and I could graph that line. Up here, I'm at point slope form. Point slope means I should be able to find a point and the slope. Our slope comes directly in front of the parentheses here. There's an invisible -1, so it's -1. The point, x coordinate is with x, switches sign, -1 becomes +1. Y coordinate is with y, +3 becomes -3. They always switch sign. Down here, this is kind of hard to look at because there's a bunch of invisible things going on. It's actually a hidden slope-intercept form. So, slope-intercept means I can pull out slope and y-intercept, but don't be confused by the invisible pieces. Slope is 1 in front of x, y-intercept is 0. This one, the last one, again, don't be fooled by invisible pieces. This is a 1x minus 1y equals 0. I could solve this for y, and I would be going back to point-slope form, which would be perfectly fine. Or, I can find intercepts. If I plug in 0 for x, this goes away. And I have -1y equals 0, so I divide by -1. 0 divided by -1 is 0. When you see this happening, you know this is also going to happen. This is interesting because it means this is the one case where I cannot graph this just by using intercepts from standard form. So in this case, I actually have to solve for y and then use my slope-intercept, or my slope-intercept form. Sorry. Yeah. Lastly, here are 3 for you to go ahead and try. If you know what you're doing, you feel like you can pound through this, go ahead and pause me now, do these, bring them into class tomorrow. If you don't know what you're doing, I'm going to give you a tip in 2 seconds. My tip is going to be the forms. If you look at this looks a lot like y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Don't forget, these things switch signs when you pull them out. This thing looks a lot like y equals, x is back here, so this is actually b plus mx. Don't get caught up with invisible things. And this one down here looks a lot like ax plus by equals c. Best of luck. See you tomorrow.